Yeah, another slow month for me, so this ended up mostly turning into the emo and punk power hour because that's the only stuff really interesting me as of late. Whatever, we've got albums, we've got impressions, we've got Albumpressions. This is an interesting one that came onto my radar by way of Glass Beach repping for it, so it already had a leg up, and yeah, I can see why Glass Beach would rep this. Black queer emo digging into the depths of modern American life and finding not much but despair and tragedy in it, where they can go from mourning the loss of a friend to an angry rant against the Senate Majority Leader, to suicidal ideations, to coping with the lingering shreds of toxic masculinity, and that's only a third of the album. Yeah, it's all a bit bleak, but in a way that feels real, heartbreakingly real. The one consistent issue is that the mixing and production really mutes the high end, and doesn't have the weight to make the low end really crush when it needs to, so the diverse instrumentals and genre swings they barrel through all kind of homogenize into this muddy gray sludge, and the lack of hooks means the songs themselves don't quite stick with you the same as the writing. But that doesn't keep it from cutting deep, and it's compelling as hell the whole way through. Jesus Christ, why does the album sound like that? I can't get over that. I'm generally not sure what they're trying to accomplish on this record, actually. There's some layer of meta commentary with the 4 chord songs, and the first half of the album generally seems to be scattered musings about the band itself, but then the second leg feels more like a set of breakup songs? Is this story being used as a metaphor for a breakup, or is it the other way around? And the closer is about the irony of being in a punk band, despite the band members themselves now being pretty well off, and like, yeah, that's true. Couldn't you afford better production then? I don't know, I can't imagine this album about a dysfunctional band was written by an actually dysfunctional band, because usually a dysfunctional band just breaks up instead. The annoying part is that PUP still brought the hooks, the riffs, the energy, and even some of the experimentation, albeit not as much as Morbid stuff, but all the best parts of their sound are here, but there's so many obstacles that keep this from being as enjoyable as it could have been. I guess we're just doing an entire punk/hardcore episode then. You know what? Works for me. Especially for the first full-on post-hardcore album I've heard in a while to really stand out to me. Honestly, post-hardcore should take cues from post-metal more often. The texture and scope of the latter really lends itself well to the former. Sparrow's Failed Gods did the same in 2019 and that one ruled, which, interestingly enough, the vocals on Invisible Self remind me a lot of that record too, which I'm all here for. I do kinda wish more hooks or melodies emerged. The music is very emotionally charged with some soaring climaxes, but grounding it a bit more would help the individual songs stand out a little. And lacking a proper lyric sheet, I can't really fully grasp what the songs are about either, which is unfortunate, but man, if you can win me over this hard on just sound alone, you're doing something right. Real cool stuff, for sure. There are candles lit in sacrament. Oh, this one's a doozy. Another recommendation from Rodrigo, and well, on the surface, this should work for me. It's got the same theatrical aspirations of the Deer Hunter and Marianas Trench, albeit with less of a focus on rock and a lot more on mellower emo tones and, more than anything, bluegrass music. Which, given the setting, makes sense. Two incompatible lovers in the American Midwest trying to pull each other from their own lives into the others, with a third party as the rightfully frustrated onlookers seeing the cyclical tale unfold. Over half the album is just focused on the night they met and does well to establish the chemistry between the two. But there's one element that I can't really get past. July has an external motivation, that being her writing career, yet June lacks for external motivation. His entire focus is on July. The two sides lack balance, which makes the narrative even more frustrating, more so than was intended. It also goes out of its way to be as inaccessible as possible, through its crushing length, through having 3 characters speak with no distinct voices between them, through very flowery literary language that often obscures meanings. It's written as a stage play first and album second, and that especially shows in the song constructions, which are winding and disjointed without any real core to them. Just vehicles for which to tell the story, the same way as the last Ariane album was. And when the overly meticulous lyrics give the music almost no room to breathe, it kinda just fades into the background. Which might be fine if not for, again, this being over an hour and a half long, with almost no breaks. It's exhausting. And while I understand why narratively it's structured this way, I feel that when June Met July is already its own self-contained album, and making the rest as a separate album to wrap around it would have made this more accessible and less frustrating, especially since, and here's the kicker, this is only half the story anyways, one that the third-party character has had almost zero presence in up to this point. I don't know, I respect the ambition, there's definitely a strong emotional core here, and musically it's alright, certainly interesting, but between the bloat and the inaccessibility, it's something I'm going to struggle to return to often.
Every cop light is for me until it passes. Every cop make sure this black light lasts.
Dug McKinley Dixon's most recent project, so I figured, hey, why not check out his back catalog too? And yeah, this one might be even more jazz than that one, interestingly enough. Definitely a few tracks here that have a more traditional structure and sound, but there's just as many, if not more, tracks defined by long instrumental jams and even a spoken word interlude in the middle of it all. And while I can't find a lyric sheet, it's still pretty easy to grasp the general themes, namely the black experience in America and how it interacts with death. And while this record seems to paint with broader strokes as opposed to For My Mama's primary focus on one particularly traumatic event, and Dixon struggles to cope with it, it's still damn powerful and gut-wrenching. Not something I really feel, equipped to speak on more than that, but even the content aside, I might like the instrumentation on this one even more overall. And Dixon's stuff in general is giving me an inroad to a genre I've often struggled with too, which I think is pretty cool. And that'll wrap up this month. Next month, get ready for this, it's Grab Bag Month. As in, well, I'm gonna be checking out a few albums for songs from my recent subscriber special, and doing some Albumpressions for the ones I really dug, alongside whatever else releases this month. Should hopefully make for a meatier episode if nothing else. Anyways, catch y'all next time.